Welcome back to the long exposure. Today we're going to be talking about automatic versus manual. Okay, what should you be shooting in? Okay, now there's a lot of different settings in between. Before I begin, let me ask you guys, please subscribe. Check out the links in the description. It goes to my Amazon store where you're going to find many helpful books on photography. Many are about $3, $4, $6. Nothing huge. They're going to help you a lot in your photography and your adventure learning. Okay. Now, when we talk about manual versus automatic, okay, and the ones in between, you have someone probably just died. No, I'm just joking. You have manual, you have P, okay, which, well, this is on Canon, okay, and then you have timing priority and you have aperture priority, okay, or shutter priority. I'm kind of worried about these people. I'm gonna have to go tow them out of here in a second if they don't get out. I'm stuck. There's a bunch of ice on the road back here. Anyways, okay, so yeah, shutter priority you have, or time priority depending on which camera brand that you use, and then you have aperture priority, okay. Now, I prefer shooting in straight manual because I have control over all aspects of my photography, okay? If you're using P or that green square, okay, don't do it. Stop it. What you're doing is you're really taking any creative process that you can use in photography and you're giving it all to the camera, and the camera is not able to think and decide and choose what actually is going to look good in the photograph. Okay, they made it out. This is an interesting video, okay? You're not going to be able to choose what you want in your photograph. You're not going to be able to choose motion blur. You're not going to be able to use depth of field. You're not going to be able to choose the correct exposure. For example, right here, if I had used automatic, the snow would be a lot brighter than it looks. Okay, I have it stepped down quite a bit because the snow naturally overexposes the photograph. Okay, and what you would get if I used automatic in this scene, is you'd get something that looks more like this. Okay, I prefer, even though I'm a little bit darker in this photograph, I prefer, you can actually see some detail in the snow now. The snow actually acts like a big diffuser, so I'm exposed pretty decently as well. Okay, but if you use automatic, you're going to lose the ability to manipulate that. You're going to lose a lot of power, okay? Especially if you're using it to shoot actual professional photographs or sunsets. Like we talked about a couple of videos ago, if you go out and shoot a sunset using automatic mode, I'm sure you can get some decent shots, but you're going to miss out on all you could be doing if you were using manual, okay? So one exercise that I would actually ask you guys to do is to go out, and if your camera has a live view function, okay, I love using this for sunsets because, first of all, you don't have to look into the sun, which is never a good idea, especially using a lens. Okay, and that's like basically using a magnifying glass, okay? So using your live view is actually beneficial in this situation anyways, okay? But it's also great for the exercise. Go out, set your camera up on a tripod, open up your screen, use it use your live view that lets you see what it's going to look like when you expose it, and just mess with your aperture, mess with your shutter speeds, and really get a feel for, okay, if I took it down a couple stops, okay, and for those of you who don't know what a stop is, it's basically just manipulating your aperture or your shutter speed up or down, okay, faster shutter speed, slower shutter speed, smaller aperture, bigger aperture. Okay, if you go step up, it's basically you're saying that you're letting more light in. If you're stepping it down, you're letting less light in. Okay, so one step up is one full step of an aperture or a shutter speed. One step down is the opposite. Okay, but basically get out there, use your live view and just watch what happens when you move it up a stop or down a stop. Crank it all the way, crank your aperture all the way open, see what happens, crank it all the way down, see what happens, crank your shutter speeds all the way up and all the way up, all the way down, slow them down quite a bit, and actually see what the screen looks like. Okay, that way you can go, okay, well, and then watch your lighting meter. Okay, this is going to be the interesting thing. When you watch that lighting meter, don't always keep it right in the middle. Okay, if you keep it right in the middle all the time, you're not going to get very good exposures most of the time. Okay, unless the whole scene's completely balanced, you need to really judge what the correct exposure is. Don't let the camera do it for you all the time. Okay, especially in sunsets, for example, like we're talking about. If you go out to the sunset and you crank that exposure down and drop that exposure down, and those colors that start popping, a lot of times you're going to see that your two stops are even more underexposed. Whereas if you put it in the middle, you're going to see that while the scene's lighter, you're missing a lot of those colors that would have just been popping if you would have underexposed it a little bit. Okay, so this is where manual mode really excels, because you're able to capture things that you wouldn't normally be able to do in automatic. And if you shoot only in automatic and you never experiment, you'll never even know what you're missing out on. Okay, I could talk for an hour about manual, okay, because it's just so much to it that like a 5 to 6 minute video doesn't really do it justice. Okay, but I don't want to keep you here all day long. So the main thing you want to do out there, go out there, shoot in manual. Okay, the other thing that allows you to do is this: just say that you're shooting birds. Okay, you're out shooting nature and you see some birds you want to get a good photograph of. You start shooting those birds, and they're staying still for the most part. And all of a sudden, a deer runs by, but you need a fast shutter speed to get that deer running through the forest, and you want to capture that thing still as possible. You're gonna be able to crank up that shutter speed up. You're gonna be able to open up your aperture. You're gonna be able to follow that thing, capture that shot, and it's right there. Okay. Now, if you were in automatic mode, if you tried to do that, you're not going to be able to, first of all. And if you're trying to look at your camera and get change it to, for example, shutter priority or time priority or even manual, by the time you get there, that deer or whatever that important object that entered your photograph you had the idea about is probably going to be gone by then. So in that way, you're also losing opportunities, okay? Whereas if you're in manual, you have all those controls right at your fingertips. You can change all those things really quickly, get that shot, and then go back to what you were shooting, okay? It also gives you the opportunity to manipulate, just like the sunset, if you're shooting portraits or landscapes, it gives you the opportunity to really experiment with, okay, what does it look like with a shallow depth of field? What does it look like with everything in focus? What does it look like with the faster shutter speed? What does it look like with a slow shutter speed? Okay, the most convenient way possible without having to go in there and change all these settings every single time you want to take a shot. You don't have to go from time priority to shutter priority or aperture priority, whatever. You don't have to keep changing those things to get there. Those things are useful. You might want to go practice with them, especially in the beginning, but really get in the habit of using manual. Anyway, guys, check out the description down below for the bookstore and subscribe.